The first time ever, Kelly sets the record straight with on-the-record confirmation of a number of damning details about Donald Trump from background sources, including from a 2020 Atlantic story reported with unnamed sources by editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg, including the stunning detail that Trump turned to Kelly on Memorial Day at Arlington National Cemetery in 2017 and asked, "I don't get it. What was in it for them?" This is Kelly confirming on the record stories of Trump insulting Senator John McCain and former President George H.W. Bush because in Vietnam and in World War II, respectively, the former aviators were shot down. Kelly describes Trump as, quote, "a person that thinks those who defend their country in uniform or are shot down or seriously wounded in combat or spend years being tortured as POWs are all, quote, suckers because, quote, there is nothing in it for them. A person that did not want to be seen in the presence of military amputees because, quote, it doesn't look good for me. A person that demonstrated open contempt for a Gold Star family, for all Gold Star families on TV during the 2016 campaign."
Mike Smith, great to have you on the Ken Harbaugh Show. You're an F-18 pilot, go Navy, and a board member at Vets for Responsible Leadership. There's a new poll out that shows former President Trump's support among veterans is cratering. And I believe this poll came out even before the Arlington scandal. Can you give us the top line of that poll and what we should take from it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the top line numbers from the poll is that Donald Trump back in 2016 used to be a positive 19% amongst veterans as a whole. Veterans are a super conservative voting bloc, and so historically Republicans have done really well here. But over the years, he's continued to slide. He's down to plus 10%. And this is, again, to point out, is after the poll was conducted before Arlington happened. So we don't even know what has happened since.
And that plus 10, just for context, includes every veteran demographic. It includes the over 65. Can you tell us what's happening with our generation of veterans and younger veterans in particular, which are really the future of the veteran movement?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely cratered amongst younger veterans, in particular active duty in that poll. Yeah. He was down to plus 2%. So these are the people that are wearing the uniform today. And for everybody that likes to dog on millennials, this is millennials and Gen Z. The people that are wearing the uniform today are millennials and Gen Z, and they, like most millennials and Gen Z, don't support Donald Trump.
And this seems to me, just reading some of the tabs on this poll, it seems to me to be less about opposition to Donald Trump's policies, and there's certainly some of that, but it's more of an intuition about his leadership style, major air quotes on that, about his lack of appreciation for what real sacrifice actually means. And again, this is before Arlington happened, but I think veterans are looking at his disrespect of Gold Star families, his calling us suckers and our buddies who died losers, his demeaning of the McCain family. I differ with them on policy, but one of the truly patriotic families of American history. It's really about a sensibility, a intuition we have about the former president, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we know in the military is we've seen good leadership. We know what good leadership is. We know what bad leadership is. We know bad leadership gets people hurt or killed a lot of times, and good leadership wins wars. And one of the things, again, veterans, the military broadly, naturally a conservative voting bloc. They have a tendency to vote for conservative policies. And so it's an indictment of this individual's character. I hesitate to call him a man. It's an indictment of his character that veterans are leaving him, and the veterans in the military community broadly are leaving him. And it's because they know it's just terrible leadership. He has some broken part inside of him that requires him to diminish the service of those that give to this country in order to make himself feel better. I don't know what it comes from, but it's a brokenness, and real veterans understand that that's just not the way to lead.
One of the saddest things about his his instinct for demeaning service, I mean, he just naturally goes there, is that it has infected other parts of American society and certainly major parts of the Republican Party. I want to roll this clip of Tucker Carlson saying one of the grossest things I've ever heard about an American service member killed downrange. Here's the clip.
Look, I'm not an intellectual or particularly wise person, but I try to operate on the level of animal instinct to the extent that I can, because I think it's probably a clearer guide to right and wrong than most. And I remember just having a gut level revulsion as this, he may have been a full colonel actually. But anyway, he was an officer, and I think the commanding officer at the time where I was. But I remember feeling this revulsion as he told me about this woman, this mother, who'd had her legs blown off and then died that day outside Baghdad. And he was saying this was just such a beautiful sacrifice for freedom or for America or something. And I remember thinking, wait a second, are we allowed to send, first of all, what's a woman doing getting her legs blown off? And so if we're sending women to go fight our wars, that, first of all, that's not a liberation movement. That's a kind of slavery. I just remember thinking, that's disgusting. It's like walking by a pile of human feces on the sidewalk. You can explain it away, and there are no restrooms here. It's like, no, they're on the sidewalk. Like, I'm against that. It's just disgusting. And I don't need to explain it, actually.
Mike, how do you react to that?
I don't know what's going on. I don't know how this person has an audience. I don't know how. It's just kind of a loss for words. It's the same thing as Trump using Arlington for politics. It's people that are willing to trade everything for a cult of personality. And, say what you will about these people, but they have great authoritarian instincts, which is an authoritarian relies upon the destruction of institutions and relies upon the destruction of what is good and of service in order to build this cult of personality. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that this week we found out that the Department of Justice was prosecuting people for disinformation being propagated by the Russian state. I don't know what's going on with Tucker Carlson, but and looks like a duck and quacks like a duck. Like, sometimes you got to wonder, like, what's going on.
It's Ken Harbaugh. Quick break here because I have two favors to ask. We're off to a great start with the Ken Harbaugh Show on YouTube, but the podcast needs a little love. Please click the link below to follow, rate, and review. The success of shows like this really does depend on those ratings. And if you haven't yet followed me on Patreon, please check it out. It's free to sign up, or you can pitch in a few bucks a month. Every dollar goes back into this show and our pro-democracy efforts, including the reporting from Ukraine. Go to patreon.com/Ken Harbaugh. Thanks for the support. Yeah, I know. I think the other shoe is going to drop soon. Apparently, there's a list of 600 names of Russian agents, willing or unwilling, right? They were serving the interests of the Kremlin. We've only heard of 4 big names coming out of that. We just did an episode on Tim Pool making $100,000 a week for a show that doesn't do much better than this one. And I promise you, we're not making anything close to that. This, if anything, is a public service. I mean, when you're getting that kind of money, it's dirty, and there are many more dominoes to fall in this. I want to go back to the poll real quick, because I think veterans are picking up just innately on that authoritarian tendency that Trump has that has taken over the Republican Party. If you have them handy, can you point to some of the questions and the responses that veterans gave in this poll that aren't reflected in the numbers, but capture the sentimental shift among veterans towards the former president?
Yeah, 53% of veterans totally disapprove of the way that Donald Trump was behaving with foreign leaders, very specifically around dictators and authoritarians. 70% of veterans, 70-30 is how it broke out, were concerned about election violence this season. 95% support a pledge that all political candidates should sign disavowing political violence.
Which, if I can interrupt, which VFRL has tried to get Republican leaders to sign, and they've not only rejected that request, they threw you personally out on your, well, they threw, I think, Dan Barkoff out of a convention simply for asking for a pledge of nonviolence.
Yeah, that's right. We were there at the North Carolina GOP convention around Memorial Day and presented them peacefully the idea that we want the Republican Party to sign a pledge of nonviolence, and they wouldn't do it.
Yeah, you know what? I want to roll that clip again because it's a good one of VFRL getting thrown out of a Republican convention for asking for a nonviolence pledge between now and the election.
Hi, so I'm Dan Barca from Veterans for Responsible Leadership. I've got a letter here for you. We have a letter for the Carolina asking you to please not engage in any violence or violent political rhetoric at this time.
You're not a delegate, you have to leave.
Okay.
Time to walk out. Out. Hey, out. You're not a delegate, you're out the room. Go. There's the door. Go. Sir, out the door. Now. You're not a delegate, you're not a delegate, you have to leave. Go. Now. Out the door. Sir, hold on a second. That's good. We can talk about it outside. Happy to. But you're going outside, you're not a delegate. Calm down, everybody.
Mike, any last words on this poll? And it's always a dangerous game, but any predictions about the veteran vote come November?
I think that there's a couple things to highlight in this vote or in this poll specifically, which is that it's, again, I'm not a politician. I'm just a volunteer that cares deeply about my country and served in uniform. But that doesn't make me a political expert by any means. But what it does tell to me, and what seems anecdotally based upon my experience with some of my friends that have served, is that even those that may be willing to support Donald Trump and kind of excuse away all of his foolishness, they're not rabidly so anymore. It's not just a question of kind, but degree. And so his support is weakening. Even the people that normally would have gone out and potentially supported him a little bit more aggressively, they're not putting the yard signs up. They're not waving the flags. They're not calling. They're not knocking doors. At the same time, veterans of us veterans that understand that Donald Trump is a terrible leader, disrespects our service, is bad for national security, and is a danger to democracy. We understand and are increasingly energized. And I think the more he goes this direction, the more he's going to lose. And because it's an ego thing for him rather than a service thing, he's going to continue to attack veterans. He has a long history of doing that. He's going to keep doing that, and he's going to keep losing veterans as a result. That would be my nickel prediction for this election.
Well, thanks, Mike. Great note to end on. We'll definitely check in again between now and November 5th. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, you too, Ken. It was good to talk to you.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.